Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now the Bitcoin RSI is attempting to break this downtrend. And at the same time, we are seeing more Bitcoin short positions than Bitcoin long positions for the first time in history on this exchange. And later in this video, I'll be taking a look at some other important Bitcoin charts and possibly a brand new Bitcoin pattern that is forming right now. So make sure you're watching this video all the way to the end so that you don't miss out on any of this important information. And if that sounds good to you, just before we jump into it, feel free to leave a like down below. And if you're new to the channel, you might as well subscribe with notifications turned on for more updates just like this every single day. But with all of that out of the way, let's get straight into what this video is about. So right here on the Bitcoin US dollar chart on the daily time frame. And I won't be spending too much time on this chart because I have been covering it over the past few days and nothing too crazy has happened over those last few days. So basically, the main level of support for Bitcoin to the downside, according to these Fibonacci levels, is that 78.6% Fibonacci level coming in at around 35k. And obviously, we saw a successful bounce at that exact level around a week ago. And in terms of resistance, we have this level right here coming in at approximately 40,000, give or take, because that was huge support previously on the charts. And anytime we see a major support level and we break below that level, that usually acts as resistance. But if you're looking in the daily RSI for Bitcoin right now, technically speaking, we are still trending to the downside because we are still making lower highs and lower lows. But if you're looking at the most recent moves in the daily RSI, we are pretty much testing this important descending line of resistance. We haven't really seen a successful break above this point of resistance just yet. We're still hanging around that level. And by the way, this line of resistance in the daily RSI is coming in at around 36 to 37 approximately. So if we continue to see some solid daily candle closes and we see the RSI start pushing well above that level right there with daily closes once again to cement the RSI in place, then in that case, we would finally be breaking out of this descending line of resistance, and that will possibly be a signal on the chart telling us that we are potentially beginning some sort of reversal. But as of right now, at the time of recording this video, we haven't really seen that just yet. We are still waiting to see a little bit more confirmation of this playing out. And also, as I have been mentioning quite a lot recently on the channel, we've got a very similar thing on the 3-day time frame for Bitcoin as well, because the 3-day RSI is obviously still in a downtrend. We're still forming lower highs and lower lows. But what we can see in other bearish times throughout Bitcoin's history, like for example, the middle of last year, or perhaps the second half of 2019, we saw a lot of bearish price action. During both of those time periods, we saw the 3-day RSI in a major downtrend, and then the moment we broke above that descending line of resistance, both of these times here, that was when we basically confirmed more bullish price action that played out over the next few months or so. And even when you're looking at the March 2020 crash, that was happening at the same time as the stock market was crashing, but you can see that that brought the 3-day RSI slightly into oversold territories, which is very close to where the 3-day RSI is currently sitting at. And so obviously, if you picked up some Bitcoin in those previous examples that I just mentioned and simply held that Bitcoin for the longer term, you would have done very well. But it's important to mention that that is not financial advice. That's just telling you what has happened in Bitcoin's past. But right now, my current Bitcoin strategy is to continue to dollar cost average into Bitcoin and hold for the longer term. But the next possible trend to the upside isn't really confirmed until we finally see a break above this descending line of resistance, which right now in the 3-day RSI, we haven't really seen just yet, but we are potentially getting closer to that. And quickly checking out the weekly time frame for Bitcoin, usually when we reach a major market bottom or a major market top, we also see a significant spike or surge in Bitcoin's volume. And as of right now, we haven't actually seen a massive spike in the Bitcoin volume on the weekly time frame, but here on the 3-day chart that I was just taking a look at, you can see that recently the Bitcoin volume is starting to slowly increase, which if that continues, then that is a good sign to see, because once again, if we start to see more volume coming into play, then that is how we can be more confident that Bitcoin is potentially bottoming out. But right now, we are not seeing that. So this is just a sign on the chart telling us that we should still remain cautious for the time being. But with that being said, checking out the daily Bitcoin chart and bringing out this indicator right here, which shows us the percentage of Bitcoin long positions to Bitcoin short positions on the Bybit exchange. And what we are seeing right now is more Bitcoin short positions than we're seeing Bitcoin long positions on the Bybit exchange for the first time in history. Seriously, this has never happened before on the Bybit exchange, which is technically more of a bullish signal than it is a bearish one. For example, looking at some other times in Bitcoin's history that we've seen a lot of short positions on the Bybit exchange compared to Bitcoin long positions. This example right here was during the end of January 2021, just as the Bitcoin price was actually bottoming out and getting ready for another major move to the upside. But you might be thinking, well, that was in an uptrend for Bitcoin. Right now, we are technically in a downtrend, but also in this downtrend that we saw in May, June, and July. As we were leading into June, we saw a massive increase in short positions, which at that that time was driving the price to the downside, but that was setting us up for a major move to the upside that came over the next few months or so once those short positions finally began to close again. So in the immediate short term, while we're seeing more short positions open, technically that is adding a selling pressure for Bitcoin. So technically this is a bearish signal while we're seeing this happening, but this is leading up to a potential bullish move once we eventually see these short positions close again, which would then be adding a buying pressure to the Bitcoin price. And generally speaking, the more short positions that are open, the bigger the next bullish move will potentially be. And keep in mind that the Bitcoin miners are still accumulating a lot of Bitcoin, and most likely a lot of those Bitcoin miners will be holding for the longer term, or at least until we see much higher Bitcoin prices, simply because we've seen these Bitcoin miners accumulate a lot of Bitcoin over the past 1 year, not just in the last 2 months. But it is important to mention that this is more of a long-term bullish signal for Bitcoin, not necessarily a short-term one. So if you're only going off this chart, don't necessarily expect bullish price action tomorrow. And speaking of tomorrow, that is when the US stock market opens back up again, which will be very interesting because we did rally into the weekend. And for anyone that is new to the channel, the reason why I'm looking at the stock market is because the Bitcoin price and the stock market have somewhat correlated price action most of the time. For example, recently we've seen a major correction in the stock market, just like how recently we've seen a major correction in the Bitcoin price. So depending on what happens in the stock market this coming week, that's going to be very important for Bitcoin, because obviously if we continue to see strength in the US stock market, for example in the S&P 500 index or the Nasdaq 100 index, then that could possibly result in more bullish price action for Bitcoin. But on the other hand, if the stock market opens and we see another dump, then there's probably a good chance we could see something similar for Bitcoin. Now taking a look at the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin, right now we are forming this new triangle pattern, which is closer to an ascending triangle pattern if anything. Now traditionally an ascending triangle pattern is meant to be a bullish pattern, but just keep in mind, even though a bullish pattern is statistically more likely to break to the upside, they can still break to the downside. So ideally we should be waiting for either a confirmed break below support or a confirmed break above resistance before we can set up our next possible Bitcoin price target. And right now this point of resistance is coming into play at around 38.9k approximately. But also don't forget we have that point of resistance at around 40,000 that I mentioned at the start of this video. And as for this level of support, this is coming into play at around 37,500 US dollars per Bitcoin. And so if we see a confirmed break above this point of resistance, then I would be targeting towards 43,500 US dollars, which is also where we found resistance right back here. But if we see a confirmed break below this point of support, first I'll be targeting towards this level of support at around 35,000 once again. And anything lower than that, I'll be looking at this low, which is coming in closer towards 33,000. But for now, we need to wait to see if Bitcoin's going to break below support or above resistance to determine the next Bitcoin price target. And if you want to stay up to date in the crypto markets at all times, make sure you follow me over on my Twitter. And also feel free to follow me on my brand new Instagram if you haven't done that already. And I'll be linking both my new Instagram and my Twitter in the description down below and also in the pinned comment. But anyway, if you made it this far in the video, you might as well leave a like down below. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe with notifications turned on so that you don't miss out on any of these important updates that I post every single day. And as always, I appreciate every single one of you on this channel. I can't thank you enough. But anyway, that is it for this update. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.